Hey guys, it's Elise and welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I'm slightly obsessed with Kit Kats. I've made everything from giant caramel Kit Kat chunkies all the way through to Kit Kat Christmas tree forests and pretty much everything in between. Well, the team over at KITKAT Australia noticed just how much I love a Kit Kat, so they've sent me a challenge today to come up with a recipe that celebrates their new range of whirl flavours. So they've brought out a salted caramel whirl, amazing, and a coconut whirl, which is my husband's favourite. I'm going to show you guys how to make Freakshakes today, but not just any Freakshakes, KitKat Freakshakes. These guys are over the top, they're decadent, they're delicious, and I'm going to show you 3 different flavours: salted caramel, choc coconut, and choc mint. Let's give it a whirl. The things you're going to need for your salted caramel Freakshake: I've got some caramel chews, my salted caramel KitKat, of course. I've got a 1/4 cup of caramel topping or caramel ice cream syrup, a donut, and then some pretzels in both large and small. For my coconut Freakshake, I've got some whipping cream, a waffle cone, a coconut ruff, which is like a chocolate disc that's stuffed full of coconut. They're amazing. And I've also got some toasted coconut flakes. I'm also going to be using a little bit of coconut cream and, of course, my KitKat coconut whirl. For my mint today, I'm going to be using my Choc Mint Whirl KitKats, and then I've also got 2 chocolate mint candy bars. I've got a Choc Mint Aero and then a peppermint crisp, which is like covered in chocolate, and when you smash it up inside, it's kind of got really hard peppermint crunchy stuff inside. I've also got 2 peppermint patties. You could substitute those for chocolate cookies if you needed to. I've got a little bit of green food colouring, and I've got a circle cutter, some white chocolate, some milk chocolate, and some dark chocolate. Of course, you're going to need milk and ice cream. My ice cream's in the freezer, and I have plain vanilla ice cream for both my coconut and my caramel. And then I have choc mint chip ice cream for my mint whirl, some whole milk, and I'm serving mine today in mason jars with different coloured straws, because you gotta decorate. Let's get started. We're gonna start with salted caramel. So I've melted my white chocolate, and then I'm gonna take my caramel syrup or my caramel topping and pour it over those Jersey caramels. I'm gonna pull one out, I need that for decoration. The reason that I'm doing this is because I want something thicker than a syrup, but not quite as thick as just a straight out melted caramel, and I don't want you guys to have to spend all of your time making your own salted caramel. This one's going off into the microwave, 30-second intervals. It's gonna take no more than about a minute, and then I'm gonna stir and stir until I've got basically a really thick, delicious caramel syrup. All right, my caramel's looking amazing. Fair warning, this is going to be like thermonuclear hot, so don't put your fingers in it. Make sure that you're handling with care. I'm gonna set it off to the side and just let it cool a little bit. And then I'm gonna take my salted caramel KitKat and check that out. It's such a beautiful pattern. I love the whirl that goes through it. It kind of reminds me of a tiger print. I'm gonna take a sharp knife and I'm going to cut. Whenever I cut a KitKat, I try to cut it straight down in one good movement, because that stops it from cracking at different ends or edges. And then I'm going to cut each half in half again. And lining them up, I'm going to slice them apart because I want them to be neat. If you just break them, then they're kind of going to be a little jagged. Perfect. All of my little pieces of caramel whirl KitKat. I'm going to take one of my large pretzels, and I want it to hang over the side of the jar, which means I need to remove just this little portion here. I find a serrated edge knife works best here because you can kind of saw through it. We want those nice and neat. That's just going to hang out on the side there, so you want to make sure that it fits nicely. Looking perfect, set it off to the side. Removing my straws now, and this part can actually be done in advance. I actually like to sort of prepare the jars or the glasses and then make the shakes so that they're going in nice and cold. Now that my caramel's had a little bit of time to cool, I'm just going to place a couple of teaspoons, about 4 or so, on the inside of my mason jar and just let it luxuriously kind of dribble down the sides. Mason jars are great for this because the caramel's so hot. They're normally made out of tempered glass, which means they're not going to break. Now this is where it gets deliciously messy. I'm going to take my mason jar, turn it upside down, and then I'm going to turn it around so that caramel can start to drip down the sides. The caramel is essentially what's going to stick on a couple of our things, like our large pretzel, but I'm also going to use a bit of white chocolate to attach those KitKat pieces. So you just want to knock a little bit of the caramel off just around this top edge. You can let it dribble down the sides. And then I'm going to take my little portions of KitKat, and so that I've got the cut side up, I'm going to just dip in the white chocolate and stick on the front. You might want to support them for a second because that chocolate's still nice and melted and our caramel's still dribbling, so they might want to slide down that caramel slide a little bit. So now I'm going to take my donut, and you can either make your own or you can cheat and use store-bought, and I'm just going to dunk it into my caramel. I want that nice and coated. Lift it up. Look at that. That is epic. This guy is gonna get threaded onto a straw. So I'm gonna slide the straw through while I've kind of got him hanging out there. And then on it goes, hanging off the side of our glass. Kind of like it to be hanging over a little bit, and I don't mind if that drips because I think the drippiness of this is part of what makes it so incredibly indulgent. And then you want to give your donut just a really light sprinkling of sea salt for the salted part to our salted caramel. My caramel's cooled. It doesn't need to be completely cold, but if it's too hot, it's just not going to set on your chocolate fast enough. So I'm going to take my white chocolate now and pour it onto a tray lined with a bit of parchment. And then with the back of a spoon, I'm just going to kind of spread it out a little bit. Give it a little tap off so it gets nice and flat. And then I'm gonna take my caramel and I'm just gonna like dollop it on. You can dollop it, you can streak it, it doesn't really matter because we're gonna marble this anyway. I'm gonna take the back of a skewer or just a sharp knife, the point of a knife, and I'm just going back and forth, kind of like a figure eight, just marbling through that caramel and that chocolate. Be careful how much of the caramel you put on because the white chocolate's going to set, but that caramel is actually not. So you sort of want to blend the two together and have chunks of caramel in there, but enough white chocolate to hold everything together. Taking some of my pretzels now, and I'm just going to place a few of them onto my bark. And then that one can just be set off to the side. We're actually going to cut this into a shape before it's set. So don't refrigerate it in the fridge because we're going to keep our eye on it. We want it to still be a little bit flexible when we cut it. Now to top my glass, which is already looking completely deliciously indulgent, I'm going to take one of my caramels and I'm just going to chop it up into little chunks. You should still have a little bit of caramel around the top of your glass, so I'm just going to edge it with some little tiny chunks of caramel. You can't have too much caramel in a salted caramel milkshake. So my little salted caramel bark is not quite set. It's kind of getting there. It's all firm around the edges, but it's still soft enough. I'm going to pick it up and it should still be a little bit flexible. Pop it onto my board and I'm going to chop like a large triangle shape, trying to sort of go through and around my little pretzels. The best part about this, there's always leftovers of this bark. Perfect. Now that one can go off into the fridge to set. So while our chocolate shard's setting, it's time to make our milkshake. That's only going to take a couple of minutes to set. So we've got time to do all this, add it in, and then our first Freakshake is going to be ready. So I'm going to add a generous amount of ice cream. You guys can adjust this depending on how thick or how thin you want your milkshake to be, but I want mine to be a super thick Freakshake. I'm going to add in just a tiny bit of milk just to loosen it up. I think I always make the mistake of adding too much milk and not having it thick enough, but I want this super thick. On it goes. Once it's kind of mostly mixed, I'm going to add in the rest of my caramel mixture. Now finally, because this is a KitKat Freakshake, I'm going to take another forefinger of the salted caramel and I'm going to put one finger in my little donut there, maybe on a bit of an angle. And then I'm going to take my other 3 KitKat fingers, and I also had a couple of just little offcuts, and I'm going to add them into my milkshake. Just break them up. And on it goes. Perfect. So I've blitzed up my salted caramel KitKat and my caramel, my ice cream and my milk. I'm just going to grab my chocolate shard, and then we're going to be done. The hardest part about your chocolate shard is actually going to be fitting it in. So I'm just going to move my donut to the front. And I've got to get milkshake in here at some point. So I'm going to do milkshake first and then shard. I'm going to keep that just a little bit from the top, knowing that my shard needs a little bit of room to go in and I don't want it to overflow too much. This is the first of its kind, a salted caramel whirl Freakshake. We've got the chocolate shards, the pretzels, the massive pretzel, the donut, the KitKat, the smoothie, the caramel. There is so much going on in here. I'm definitely going to need someone to help me finish it, but because I made it, I definitely get first sip. And it's amazing. It's a milkshake that literally tastes like Kit Kats. You've seen salted caramel, but you need to see them all before you choose your favorites. Next up is going to be Choc Coconut Whirl. So I'm going to start this off again with a shard, and I'm just going to put milk chocolate onto my parchment paper lined baking tray. Spread it around using the back of a spoon. I'm going to give it a really solid tap on the bench. And then on goes kind of some blobs of our melted white chocolate. Using my skewer, I'm just going to do my little figure eights all over to make my sort of choc coconutty looking whirl. And then I'm going to top with some of my toasted coconut flakes, not too many. Perfect. Now that's going to sit off to the side and we're going to cut that before it completely sets. We can just forget about it for a few minutes. Now my coconut whirl chocolate block, and again, it's got that beautiful pattern. So the other one I was kind of feeling tiger. This one's a little bit zebra. They're all a little bit wild. I love how they look. I'm going to take my coconut whirl and I'm going to cut off 3 fingers and then another 3. So with one of my lots of 3 fingers, I just want to cut out the middle finger. This takes a little bit of precision and care because you don't want to break off the 2 others. So I'm just going to take the tip of my sharp knife and I'm really just going to sort of slice it down, just going a little bit each time so I can gradually cut a nice little groove into that chocolate. And then when I feel that it's given on either side, I'm just going to stab straight down. Kind of making like a little divot or a little gap because that's actually going to go on the side of my glass. So for the rim around the cup, we're going to do the same as we did with the salted caramel. Cut in half and then in half again. Taking my mason jar and my white chocolate now, and I'm going to dip that in. I'm going to kind of swirl it around and flip it. You can give it a couple of taps just to start that chocolate kind of dripping its way down. Now, working quite quickly before your chocolate sets, we're going to just affix all of our little pieces of KitKat all the way around, just supporting them as it sets so they don't slide down. Now, before I finish putting the KitKats on, while that chocolate's still wet, I've taken my coconut rough and I've just done the same thing that I did with my KitKat. So just use a sharp knife to saw through and make almost like a little cup hanging section so I can add it to the front of my mason jar. Straight onto that melted white chocolate. And then I'm going to take my 3 fingers of coconut whirl KitKat and a little bit more white chocolate just to glue it into place nicely. I'll put the white chocolate straight there in the middle and on it goes behind my coconut rough. Now finally, just to finish off my top edge, I'm just going to spoon kind of messily because FreakShakes can be totally messy. Spoon a little bit of this white chocolate just around that top rim because our other white chocolate's going to have already started to set. And then on goes a little bit of my flaked coconut just to add a bit of texture. In go a couple of straws and it's time to check on our little piece of coconut chocolate bark. So our coconut chocolate bark is starting to set, but it's still nice and kind of soft. I haven't set that in the fridge. And now I'm just going to cut another little triangle, kind of like I did with my salted caramel. Because I don't have the pretzels here, it actually slices through really nice and easily. And I want it to be a really nice long triangle. Off into the fridge with that one, and while that one's setting, we can make the coconut milkshake portion. While your shards are chilling out, you can take your cream and I am just going to whip that so it's nice and firm. Once my cream's 90% of the way whipped, I'm just going to add in just a very small amount, just a hint of my coconut cream. The rest of it's going to go into the actual milkshake, but I kind of want to give that cream that slight hint of coconut. Perfect. Now I'm going to put that cream into a piping bag with a star piping tip attached. Now the other thing I want to do before I make the milkshake is I'm just going to turn my waffle cone into a miniature waffle cone. I couldn't find miniature waffle cones at the store, so I'm taking matters into my own hands with my serrated edge knife and I'm just going to carve perfection. I now have an improvised mini waffle cone that's going to sit on top of my Freakshake. So I'm going to take copious amounts of delicious vanilla ice cream. I'm going to add in my little bit of coconut cream. So just the remainders of that 1/4 cup. It's pretty much all of a 1/4 cup. And then just a little milk to loosen off. Finally, I'm going to add in my 3 more fingers of KitKat, kind of crushed up a little bit. Let's whiz it all up. Perfect. Let's grab our cooled shards and we'll be ready to assemble. You should just be able to break those off your little sheet of parchment and we have our nice long shard. Again, I'm going to put the milkshake in first because otherwise I'm just not going to have any room to put it in. I'm only going to fill that just to the bottom of where my KitKats come to so that I've got room for my shards, and then I'm also going to top it with some whipped cream. And then my whipped cream. So my whipped cream, I want to make like a mound of whipped cream, and this is designed to look like an ice cream cone has been dropped on top. Like so. On goes my ice cream cone. And then I've just got to find room for my straws. That is Freakshake number 2, our KitKat Coconut Whirl Freakshake. So we've got our little kind of dropped ice cream, our toasted coconut flakes, all of that coconut KitKat around the outside edge, our shards, our coconut rough, our coconut KitKat. There is a whole lot going on in here. You'll notice I went with 2 straws because I'm definitely going to have to share. Our third and final flavour is going to be Choc Mint with our Choc Mint Whirl. So the first thing I'm going to do is smash up my peppermint crisp. I'm doing it in its packet so I don't send peppermint crisp flying everywhere. Now we can open that up and put it into a little bowl. Perfect. You can see all my little sort of shards or crystals of that really nice crystallized peppermint. Now I'm also going to take my block and I'm going to cut off 3 fingers, cut those in half and then in half again. With this guy, I'm going to cut kind of like a long row. I want this to go in as the KitKat portion of the decoration on the top. You might need a couple of goes at this because it does tend to break. We're cutting a very long piece. But remember, if you can cut straight down, it's generally the best way to get through. Perfect. All right, my first little row broke, but my second row is perfect. So you're looking something like that. 3 rows disappeared, and this is almost like a little stairway to heaven, a little Choc Mint stairway to heaven. Now, you can take some of your other little pieces here and just chop them into rough sort of chunks. And I particularly like the green bits from on top. So I'm going to separate that from some of those bottom pieces. And then finally, I'm going to take this is an Aero chocolate bar. So inside it's kind of got like bubbles and things of little mint. But really what I want to expose is that really lovely green so that when I put that on my chocolate bark, I've got kind of these little flecks of extra green through. Chop that up roughly. We're good to go. First of all, you want to rim your mason jar. So again, into my melted dark chocolate this time. Lift and straight away turn. And then we can give it a few taps. That's what I call a decorated mason jar. Now you just want to line the edges with your little pieces of KitKat. Again, just supporting them because they'll want to slide just a little bit when you first put them all on. Now that my little lid area is rimmed, I'm just going to poke through here and I'm just going to pull out just the little crunchy, shiny kind of pepperminty bits. I don't want to get all that chocolate in there. We got enough chocolate going on in this. I just want those green accents just around the top and they should stick to that still wet dark chocolate. All right, we can sit that off to the side. The jar is ready to go. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of my green food coloring. So you want an oil-based or a candy coloring or even a powdered. And I'm just going to tint my white chocolate green. Down goes my dark chocolate onto a tray lined with a bit of parchment paper and spread it out with a spoon. And then on go just some generous blobs of our green all over. And then I'm just going to use a skewer just to swirl it around. All my little figure eights, giving me that beautiful mint whirl bark to match my mint whirl KitKat. Then I'm just going to add some little chunks of my green and brown peppermint candy, my KitKats, my Aero, and some of that little sprinkled over peppermint crisp that's left over because we don't want to waste it. So this one again needs to set at room temperature so that I can cut it before it's completely set. I'm going to leave that to the side, have a little tidy up, and then we're going to get cracking on the rest of this Freakshake. So again, I'm going to use my really sharp knife on my not quite set peppermint bark, and I'm just going to slice along through my bits of KitKat and make another nice long chocolate shard, or 2 or 3. Those ones are going into the fridge to completely firm up, and then we're going to make our shake. I'm using a Choc Mint or a mint chip ice cream, and I've gone with one that's really nice and green in color. So before I start scooping, I'm going to take a circle cutter. I'm going to push it straight down, and I'm going to use a knife underneath it to just sort of dig down into that ice cream and just force that disc of ice cream out. Something a little bit like that. My peppermint patties. These are going to make an over-the-top ice cream sandwich. So I'm going to place my core of ice cream in between 2 peppermint patties. And then I'm going to sandwich the 2 of them together. I'm going to put this one back off into the freezer so that it stays all frozen and the little bits that are melting top and bottom actually stick everything together. Let's make our shake. So I've got just my Choc Mint ice cream. I'm going to break up my remaining pieces of mint whirl KitKat because it's a KitKat shake. And then just a little bit of milk just to loosen things up. Again, I want mine really thick. And I want it really green too, so I don't want to put in too much milk. All right, our mint shake is ready. So I'm going to put the shake in first with just my straws. And then I'm going to take my set chocolate mint shard and place that in. And then my little bit of chocolate KitKat. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of just melted chocolate and just sort of pop it on the side of my mason jar about here because that's just going to help to keep this in place. But it's essentially going to be supported like on the straws and also on the mint shard. All right, so you can top that one up just a little bit because we don't need to leave as much space on top. And then I'm going to grab my ice cream sandwich and that's going to finish this baby off. Peppermint patty ice cream sandwich on top of your KitKat Freakshake? Well, of course. So on goes my peppermint patty ice cream sandwich, and he's just going to have to find a spot in there that works. I've got 2 straws in there, but I am definitely going to need a 3rd. This one is going to need some serious sharing. So there you've got your Choc Mint Whirl KitKat Freakshake. A big thanks to KitKat Australia for teaming up with me on today's video. I hope that I did your new KitKat Whirl flavours justice. So now you've got a salted caramel Freakshake, a chocolate coconut Freakshake, and a chocolate mint Freakshake, and you found out 3 awesome new flavours of KitKat that you can pick up in stores now. As always guys, thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoy getting your freak on.